The Cleveland Browns quarterback room is in absolute chaos. And right in the middle of it, the team's most intriguing rookie, Shedeur Sanders, has just been thrown a curveball that could change everything about his rookie season, and maybe even his career. Now, you might think this is just another player gets hurt, misses a game kind of story, but it's not that simple. This is about timing, pressure, and the razor-thin margin between becoming the next franchise superstar and fading into the background before you ever get the chance to shine. Just days after the Browns released their official depth chart, Sanders walked into practice riding a wave of momentum. He just lit up his preseason debut, delivering 2 touchdown passes with the kind of calm and confidence that makes coaches and fans alike start whispering, "Could this kid be the future?" He wasn't just throwing the ball, he was making smart reads, hitting tight windows, and showing poise that's rare for a rookie. But then in a single practice, everything changed. Sanders suffered an oblique injury, and if you know football, you know that's not just a minor tweak. The oblique is the muscle group that powers a quarterback's throwing motion, core stability, and rotational force. Without it, you can't throw with zip. You can't twist for deep passes. You can't even protect yourself properly in the pocket. It's the kind of injury that doesn't just keep you off the field, it forces you to rethink every motion, every throw, every piece of your game. And here's the kicker. Sanders wasn't even high on the depth chart yet. Despite his strong preseason showing, he was still QB4, sitting behind veterans Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, as well as fellow rookie Dillon Gabriel. So this injury doesn't just take away game reps, it risks slowing his climb up the ranks entirely. But that's only the start of the story. See, Sanders isn't the only quarterback hurt right now. Both Pickett and Gabriel are already dealing with hamstring injuries. That means 3 of the Browns' 4 quarterbacks are sidelined at the exact same time. The team is suddenly leaning heavily on 40-year-old Joe Flacco and a freshly signed Tyler Huntley just to get through practice reps and preseason snaps. For fans, this is maddening. They wanted to see the young gunslingers, the future of the franchise, battling it out and showing what they can do. Instead, they're getting a veteran-heavy stopgap approach that feels like a holdover from the past. For the Browns coaching staff, though, this is a high-stakes balancing act. Do they rush the rookies back to keep the excitement alive? Or do they stay patient, risking short-term frustration in exchange for long-term development? For Sanders, it's even more personal. This injury could be the moment that forces him to choose between trying to push through pain and risking long-term damage, or stepping back, regrouping, and proving that his mental game is just as strong as his arm. And in the NFL, sometimes how you handle a setback is what defines your career. It happened fast, the kind of moment that barely registers to the casual fan but can change an entire season for a player. 1 second, Shedeur Sanders was in the middle of another routine practice rep. The next, he was clutching his side, grimacing and slowing to a stop. At first, it looked like it might just be a minor tweak, maybe a little muscle pull. Something you shake off with a bit of stretching. But as the trainers came over, the reality set in. This wasn't just soreness. The official word came shortly after an oblique injury. For most people, that might sound like a fancy way of saying stomach muscle. But for a quarterback, it's more like a warning siren. The obliques aren't just there to help you twist or turn, they're the core engine of your throwing motion. Every time a quarterback plants his feet, rotates his torso, and fires a pass downfield, those muscles are engaged. Lose their strength, and your velocity drops. Push too hard, too soon, and you risk making the injury chronic. In Sanders' case, this is even more complicated because of where he is in his career. He's a rookie, a player still trying to prove he belongs, still learning the speed and complexity of the NFL. Every practice rep matters. Every preseason snap is a chance to impress coaches, climb the depth chart, and build chemistry with receivers. And now, he's looking at days, maybe weeks without throwing at full strength. The timing couldn't be worse. Just a few days earlier, the Browns released their preseason depth chart. Sanders, despite his impressive debut performance, was slotted at QB4. Above him were Joe Flacco, the Super Bowl-winning veteran, and Kenny Pickett, along with fellow rookie Dillon Gabriel. In other words, Sanders was starting from the bottom. He was making progress, sure, but it's hard to climb the ladder when you're watching from the sidelines. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. The Browns' quarterback room is already a mess. Pickett, hamstring injury. Gabriel, hamstring injury. That leaves Joe Flacco as the only fully healthy option, and the coaching staff scrambling to sign Tyler Huntley just to have enough arms for practice. What should have been a preseason showcase for young talent has turned into a scramble for healthy bodies. For Sanders, there's a mental hurdle here too. An oblique injury can make you second-guess your own motion. Even after you're cleared, you might hesitate to throw at full power. That split-second hesitation can lead to missed windows, inaccurate passes, and a loss of confidence. And in the NFL, confidence isn't just nice to have, it's essential. But here's the twist. While most people see this as a roadblock, it might actually be the first big turning point in Sanders' career. It's going to force him to slow down, study more, and sharpen the mental side of his game. And in a league where preparation is often the difference between a starter and a backup, that could be the hidden advantage no one's talking about yet. If you were to walk into the Browns quarterback meeting room right now, you'd think you'd stumbled into an injury clinic. 3 out of the 4 names on the depth chart are banged up. Kenny Pickett, nursing a hamstring. Dillon Gabriel, same issue. And now, Shedeur Sanders joins the list with an oblique injury that could sideline him for the rest of the preseason. That leaves just one man standing. Joe Flacco, the 39-year-old veteran whose career has already seen its share of highs and lows. Flacco's no stranger to being the last man standing. He's played in playoff wars, Super Bowls, and countless pressure situations, but this wasn't the plan. The Browns didn't sign him to carry the preseason. They signed him to mentor, to stabilize, to be a break glass in case of emergency option. And now? He's the only healthy quarterback who actually knows the playbook. The Browns were forced to bring in Tyler Huntley, who's barely had time to memorize his locker location, let alone the team's offensive system. It's the NFL equivalent of grabbing someone off the street to fill in for a symphony violinist. Sure, they've played music before, but now they've got to perform in front of a sold-out crowd, with no rehearsal. This was supposed to be the moment fans got to see the future. The Browns' younger quarterbacks, Pickett, Gabriel, Sanders, all battling for snaps, all learning the system, all giving fans a glimpse of what the next 5 years could look like. Instead, preseason reps are going to be dominated by a veteran on borrowed time, and a backup learning plays off an iPad. It's more than just disappointing for fans. It's a nightmare for the coaching staff. Preseason is when you experiment, when you test different receiver QB combinations, when you find out who clicks and who doesn't. Every lost rep is a lost opportunity to build rhythm and chemistry. And with all 3 young quarterbacks sidelined, the Browns' development plan has been thrown out the window. The ripple effects go even deeper. Without live game reps, rookies like Sanders fall behind in decision-making speed, the split-second choices that separate NFL starters from backups. Those are things you can't fully simulate in practice. Watching from the sidelines only takes you so far. There's also the looming question of Week 1. If Pickett and Gabriel aren't ready and Sanders still isn't 100%, do the Browns really want to start the regular season with Joe Flacco as their only healthy game-ready quarterback? The optics of that would be brutal for a franchise trying to sell fans on a bright future. But perhaps the most dangerous part of this QB room meltdown isn't the immediate impact, it's the temptation it creates. When a team is short on healthy players, there's always pressure to rush someone back before they're truly ready. And in the NFL, coming back too early from an injury is often a one-way ticket to making things worse. For Sanders, that's the trap, and if the Browns fall into it, this preseason crisis could turn into something much bigger and much uglier. Before the injury, Shedeur Sanders was on the verge of becoming one of the most talked-about rookies in Cleveland, and not just because of his famous last name. In his preseason debut, Sanders didn't just look good for a rookie. He looked calm, decisive, and dangerous in a way that made even the most skeptical Browns fans take notice. From his very first drive, you could see the poise. He stood in the pocket, eyes scanning downfield, refusing to be rattled by the pass rush. He didn't bail out early. He didn't panic, and when the window opened, he hit it. His first touchdown pass was a textbook example of anticipation, releasing the ball before the receiver even turned his head, threading it perfectly between 2 defenders. The second touchdown? That was pure creativity. The pocket collapsed. Sanders rolled to his right, and instead of forcing a risky throw or taking the sack, he kept his eyes up, spotted a receiver breaking free, and delivered a strike on the run. The crowd reaction wasn't just polite applause, it was that buzz you get when fans realize they might be watching the start of something special. For a rookie quarterback, those moments matter. Preseason games might not count in the standings, but they count in the minds of coaches and teammates. Every sharp throw builds trust. Every smart decision proves you can handle the offense. And for Sanders, that debut felt like the first step toward earning more than just 4th place on the depth chart. But here's the reality of NFL politics. One good game doesn't erase the competition. Joe Flacco's veteran presence, Kenny Pickett's experience, and Dylan Gabriel's draft pedigree meant Sanders still had a long climb ahead. The Browns staff loved his potential, but they weren't going to anoint him after 60 minutes of preseason football. The message was clear: keep earning it. And that's exactly what Sanders seemed ready to do. Reports from practice said he was staying late to review film, working extra with receivers to fine-tune timing, and asking questions in meetings that showed he wasn't just memorizing plays, he was learning why each play worked. That's what made the injury so frustrating. It didn't just rob him of reps, it robbed him of momentum. In the NFL, momentum is gold. You string together good practices, a strong preseason game, and suddenly you're getting more snaps with the first team. You're building chemistry, you're climbing. Without those reps, it's harder to keep your name in the conversation, and in a crowded quarterback room, out of sight can quickly mean out of mind. Still, that brief breakout was enough to plant a seed not just in fans, but in the Browns coaching staff. They saw the potential. They saw the leadership flashes. And they know that when Sanders comes back, he's got something worth building on. On the surface, Shedeur Sanders' oblique injury looks like nothing but bad news, a cruel interruption to the momentum he'd built in his preseason debut. But in the NFL, setbacks like this can sometimes become hidden blessings, shaping a player's career in ways the stat sheet will never show. For one, the injury forces Sanders to slow down physically, and that can actually speed up his mental development. In the constant grind of training camp, rookies are often so focused on executing plays that they barely have time to process why they're running them. They're reacting instead of mastering. Now, with his reps temporarily limited, Sanders has an opportunity to flip that script. Instead of taking snaps, he'll be in the film room. Instead of running drills, he'll be dissecting coverages, memorizing tendencies, and asking questions that don't always come to mind when you're sweating through practice. This is where quarterbacks learn the difference between playing football and playing the position. It also gives him a chance to deepen his grasp of the Browns' offense without the pressure of daily competition. In a healthy QB room, every day is a fight for snaps, and one bad throw can slide you down the pecking order. Right now, that pressure is off. Sanders isn't losing ground because everyone else is hurt too. The playing field is frozen. That breathing room could be just enough for him to refine the finer points of his game. Then there's the leadership angle. You don't have to be under center to influence the team. Sanders can stay engaged in meetings, encourage teammates, and position himself as a steady, positive presence even while sidelined. That kind of maturity doesn't go unnoticed by coaches, especially in a locker room where veteran leadership is limited. And while it might not feel like it now, this injury could protect Sanders from a more dangerous outcome, being rushed into real game action before he's ready. It's easy to fall into the trial by fire trap, where a rookie QB gets thrown into the lineup too soon, struggles, and loses confidence. By keeping Sanders out for now, the Browns might be shielding him from a harsh early spotlight that's derailed plenty of promising careers. Injuries also have a way of sharpening a player's focus. They're a reminder that every snap in the NFL is precious. Sanders has always been known for his competitive drive, but coming back from this with a renewed hunger could take it to another level. If he channels that energy into his preparation, he might return sharper, hungrier, and more ready than if this injury had never happened. So while most headlines are framing this as a setback, there's another way to see it, as the first real test of Sanders' adaptability. Great quarterbacks aren't defined by the passes they throw when everything's going right. They're defined by how they respond when the game or life throws them off balance. Shedeur Sanders' journey has been defined not just by his arm strength or passing accuracy, but by an unshakable mental toughness that seems to have been forged under the brightest and most unforgiving lights. In an era where college athletes face immense pressure from social media scrutiny to relentless performance expectations, Sanders has demonstrated a level of composure that separates him from the pack. His resilience isn't accidental. It's the product of upbringing, discipline, and a mindset that turns every setback into a setup for a comeback. Raised under the guidance of his father, NFL legend and current Colorado head coach Deion "Primetime" Sanders, Shedeur has had the rare advantage and burden of living in the shadow of greatness. Many athletes crumble under the weight of such expectations, but Sanders has embraced them. Instead of running from comparisons, he's used them as fuel, building his own identity while honoring the legacy of his family name. This dynamic has shaped him into not only a talented quarterback, but also a mentally grounded leader. Resilience for Sanders has often been tested in high-pressure game situations. Whether it's staring down a fierce pass rush with seconds left on the clock or engineering a comeback drive in front of tens of thousands of roaring fans, he has shown an uncanny ability to maintain poise. One of his standout traits is his calm demeanor in the pocket, no frantic scrambling, no panic decision-making. It's the look of a player who believes in his preparation and trusts his instincts, no matter the chaos unfolding around him. But Sanders' character shines just as brightly off the field. He's known for his professionalism in interviews, his respect for teammates, and his ability to block out noise, both positive and negative. When critics question his readiness for the NFL or doubt Colorado's legitimacy as a program, Sanders responds not with words, but with performance. This quiet confidence is an essential piece of his leadership style. It's why teammates trust him implicitly and rally behind him in tough moments. His resilience is also tied to his work ethic. Reports from Colorado's training camp often highlight Sanders as one of the first players to arrive and the last to leave. He studies film obsessively, works on footwork drills until they're second nature, and constantly refines his throwing mechanics. This discipline ensures that when adversity strikes a blown play, a turnover, a bad quarter, he has the tools and mental readiness to bounce back immediately. Another aspect of Sanders' character is humility balanced with ambition. While he's not shy about setting lofty goals, including NFL aspirations, he doesn't allow his ego to overshadow the team's mission. In a sport that often glorifies individual stars, Sanders consistently redirects attention to the collective effort, praising offensive linemen, receivers, and coaching staff for success on the field. In short, Shedeur Sanders' resilience and character are not intangible, feel-good qualities, they are competitive advantages. They're the reason he thrives under pressure, earns respect from opponents, and inspires confidence in his locker room. For fans, they offer a glimpse of a player whose career trajectory will likely continue to rise, not just because of his talent, but because of the unshakable mindset behind it. In the NFL, quarterback controversies are nothing new, but the situation brewing in Cleveland has the potential to define the Browns' season and maybe even their future. The coaching staff, led by Kevin Stefanski, is now staring down one of the most difficult decisions of their tenure. Who should be the leader under center going forward? Should they stick with Kenny Pickett, a player they invested in and hoped would blossom into a steady hand, or ride the momentum of Shedeur Sanders, whose fiery play and surprising poise have electrified training camp? From the outside, it might seem simple. Sanders has been putting up gaudy numbers in practices and scrimmages, including that now famous 41 of 53 passing performance against the Browns' starting defense during joint sessions. Fans are buzzing. Analysts are openly questioning whether the Browns have found their new face of the franchise. But inside the walls of the Browns facility, the decision isn't as straightforward. Quarterback transitions mid-season or even in preseason come with enormous risks. Pickett, for all his struggles, has been immersed in the Browns' system, has developed chemistry with the starters, and understands the offensive playbook in a way Sanders is still learning. Benching him could disrupt locker room stability, send the wrong message about loyalty, and potentially damage a quarterback's confidence beyond repair. On the other hand, the NFL is a results-driven league. Stefanski knows that winning is the ultimate currency, and with each passing week, the patience of fans and media grows thinner. The Browns have a roster built to compete now, an elite defense anchored by Myles Garrett, a dynamic backfield, and a strong offensive line. If Sanders gives them the better chance to win immediately, can they really afford to sit him on the bench for the sake of sentiment? The decision is further complicated by front office dynamics. General Manager Andrew Berry was heavily involved in the acquisition of Pickett, believing his maturity and work ethic could stabilize the quarterback position. Admitting that experiment isn't working, especially so soon, would mean owning a mistake. At the same time, Berry also recognizes the potential marketing and competitive upside of handing the reins to Sanders, a young quarterback with not only skill but a magnetic personality. It's a scenario where every choice has consequences. Go with Pickett, and you risk wasting Sanders' momentum and alienating a fan base hungry for excitement. Go with Sanders, and you gamble on a rookie-like player who's still adjusting to NFL speed, a move that could backfire if he struggles early. Behind closed doors, these debates are intense. Stefanski has always valued preparation, discipline, and steady leadership. Sanders brings energy, flash, and fearlessness. Pickett brings experience and a calm presence. Choosing between them isn't just about stats, it's about the identity of the team and the message you send to every player in the locker room. For the Browns, this isn't just a high-stakes decision. It's a crossroads moment that could either catapult them into contention or create one of the biggest quarterback sagas in recent franchise history. As the dust begins to settle on this whirlwind sequence of events, one thing is clear: the Cleveland Browns have set the stage for one of the most intriguing quarterback dramas in recent NFL memory. What began as a promising offseason for Kenny Pickett has now transformed into a battle for control of the huddle, with Shedeur Sanders' explosive performance forcing the franchise to reconsider everything they thought they knew about their future under center. The Browns fan base is split right down the middle. On one side, you have the loyalists who believe Pickett, despite his recent struggles, deserves the time and patience to grow into the role. They point to his flashes of brilliance, his grasp of the playbook, and his leadership in the locker room as reasons to hold the line. On the other side, the Sanders supporters argue that the rookie has shown something you can't teach: poise under pressure, elite decision-making, and a level of composure that belies his age. To them, Sanders isn't just the future. He might already be the present. The Browns front office finds itself in the eye of the storm. General manager Andrew Berry and head coach Kevin Stefanski are walking a tightrope between short-term success and long-term vision. If they push Sanders into the starting role too soon, they risk stunting his growth or alienating Pickett. If they stick with Pickett, despite Sanders' clear momentum, they risk losing the locker room and the fan base's faith. Every decision from here on out will be scrutinized under a microscope, and the wrong move could set the franchise back years. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders has handled the spotlight with a maturity that's impressed even his critics. He hasn't fanned the flames or fueled the QB controversy with cocky soundbites. Instead, he's let his play on the field do the talking, quietly earning the respect of veterans and coaches alike. That humility, paired with his undeniable skill, is exactly why the Browns are facing one of the most high-stakes quarterback decisions in the league. As for Kenny Pickett, his response in the coming weeks will determine not only his place in Cleveland, but potentially the trajectory of his entire career. Will he rise to the challenge, channel the criticism into fuel, and reclaim the starting role? Or will the pressure, media scrutiny, and fan impatience force the Browns' hand before the season even starts? One thing is certain: the NFL is watching. This isn't just a Browns story anymore. It's a league-wide case study in the ruthless nature of competition at the highest level. Quarterback controversies have ended careers, created legends, and shifted franchises overnight. The outcome here could have ripple effects far beyond Cleveland. For now, the Browns' quarterback room is a pressure cooker. Every practice, every snap, every sideline glance matters. And as the preseason turns toward the regular season, the question on everyone's mind remains the same. Is this Kenny Pickett's team, or has Shedeur Sanders already taken it?